What is evolution? At its core, evolution is the change in heritable characteristics of biological populations over successive generations. Evolution is the driving force behind the incredible diversity of life we see on Earth. It occurs through genetic changes over time, enabling species to adapt to their environments. Evolution also explains the relationships between all living organisms. Life on Earth has a rich history spanning billions of years. From the first simple cells to the complex organisms we see today, evolution has shaped life's journey through time. Evolution works through heritable traits, characteristics that are passed from parents to offspring through genetic material. These include visible traits like eye color and hair color, as well as many physiological and behavioral traits. Populations change over time through various evolutionary processes. One example is the founder effect, where a small group of individuals establishes a new population, often with different frequencies of traits than the original population. A common misconception about evolution is that it represents a linear progression, with humans as the ultimate goal or pinnacle of evolution. This is incorrect. Humans did not evolve from modern chimps, and evolution is not a ladder of progress. Instead, evolution is better understood as a branching tree where species diverge from common ancestors, creating the incredible diversity of life on Earth. Each branch represents a lineage that has adapted to its own ecological niche. Another common misrepresentation shows evolution as a progression toward greater complexity or higher forms of life. This view is scientifically inaccurate. Evolution doesn't have a direction or goal. It simply results in organisms that are adapted to their current environments. To summarize, evolution is the change in heritable traits over generations. It explains Earth's biodiversity and the relationships between species. Evolution branches like a tree rather than progressing in a straight line, and all living organisms are equally evolved to survive in their particular environments. Common ancestry is a fundamental concept in evolutionary biology, proposing that all organisms on Earth share a single common ancestor. This ancestor, known as the last universal common ancestor, or LUCA, lived approximately 3.5 to 3.8 billion years ago. LUCA is the hypothetical most recent ancestor from which all current life forms descended. It's represented at the base of the evolutionary tree of life. Scientists have gathered compelling evidence supporting the theory of common ancestry. Let's explore three key lines of evidence. The first evidence is the universality of the genetic code. Almost all organisms use the same genetic code to translate DNA sequences into proteins. This codon table shows how specific DNA sequences code for amino acids. This system is shared across bacteria, plants, animals, and fungi, suggesting they all evolved from a common ancestor that used this same system. The second line of evidence comes from molecular similarities. When we compare molecules like DNA and proteins across different species, we find patterns that reflect evolutionary relationships. This chart shows amino acid differences in hemoglobin between humans and other animals. Notice how the differences increase as we compare humans to more distantly related species. This molecular evidence strongly supports the concept of common ancestry. Sequence alignments provide another powerful tool for comparing genetic material. Here we can see protein sequences from different species aligned to highlight similarities and differences. These patterns of conservation reveal evolutionary relationships. The third line of evidence comes from similarities in cellular structures. Despite the diversity of life forms, all organisms share basic cellular processes. This chart compares prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. While they have important differences, they share fundamental similarities in their biochemistry and molecular machinery, suggesting descent from a common ancestor. Scientists use phylogenetic trees to map the evolutionary relationships between different species. These branching diagrams show how species are related through common ancestry. This detailed phylogenetic tree shows the three domains of life: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryota. All branches connect to a single point at the bottom, representing LUCA, the last universal common ancestor from which all life descended. Phylogenetic trees are constructed using multiple lines of evidence. Scientists analyze DNA and protein sequences, morphological features, and fossil evidence to determine how species are related to one another. Adaptation is the process by which a species becomes better suited to its environment through evolutionary changes. These adaptations are heritable traits that help organisms survive and reproduce in their specific environments. There are three primary types of adaptations that help organisms survive in their environments. First, structural adaptations involve changes to an organism's physical features. These include modifications to body parts like teeth, skin, or appendages that help the organism survive. A perfect example is the leaf butterfly, whose wings have evolved to resemble dead leaves. This remarkable camouflage helps it avoid detection by predators. Second, physiological adaptations involve internal processes that help organisms survive. These adaptations affect metabolism, biochemical reactions, and other internal functions. Desert plants like cacti demonstrate remarkable physiological adaptations. They've evolved specialized tissues for water storage and modified photosynthesis pathways that allow them to survive in extremely arid environments. Third, behavioral adaptations involve how organisms act to survive. These include migration, hibernation, and complex social interactions. Natural selection is the primary mechanism driving adaptation. It favors traits that enhance survival and reproduction in specific environments. The adaptation process occurs when random genetic variations arise in a population. Advantageous traits are selected for over generations. These adaptations are specific to particular environments and develop gradually over time. Through adaptation, species continually evolve to better fit their environments, demonstrating the remarkable ability of life to adjust to changing conditions. Natural selection actively shapes species in response to environmental pressures. Here are three compelling examples of evolution in action. Our first example is the evolution of lactose tolerance in humans. Most mammals, including humans, naturally lose the ability to digest lactose after infancy. A genetic mutation allowing continued lactase production emerged approximately 7,500 years ago. This mutation was strongly selected for in populations that practiced dairy farming, as shown by the blue regions on this map with high lactose tolerance. This represents a recent and rapid example of human evolution. Our second example is industrial melanism in peppered moths, a classic case of natural selection observed during the Industrial Revolution. Before the Industrial Revolution, light-colored moths were better camouflaged against lichen-covered trees. As pollution darkened tree trunks with soot, dark moths gained a survival advantage and became dominant. When clean air laws reduced pollution, light moths returned to dominance. This rapid shift in population genetics directly responded to environmental changes. Our third example is the evolution of antibiotic resistance in bacteria, one of the most concerning and rapid examples of evolution occurring today. Bacteria can evolve resistance in just a few generations through various mechanisms, as shown in this diagram. These include drug efflux pumps that expel antibiotics, altering drug targets, producing enzymes that break down antibiotics, and preventing drug uptake. The selection pressure from widespread antibiotic use has accelerated this evolutionary process, creating superbugs that resist multiple drugs. These examples highlight several common threads in evolutionary processes. Natural selection acts on existing genetic variation. Environmental pressures drive adaptive changes. Evolution can occur rapidly in response to strong selection pressures. And understanding evolutionary processes helps us address modern challenges in medicine, agriculture, and conservation. Predictive evolution is an emerging field that applies evolutionary principles to forecast future genetic and species-level changes. This approach has practical applications across several fields, including medicine, agriculture, biotechnology, and conservation biology. In medicine, predictive evolution is revolutionizing how we address antibiotic resistance. By analyzing patterns in bacterial evolution, scientists can forecast which mutations will likely emerge in response to specific antibiotics. For example, with Staphylococcus aureus, predictive models have identified likely resistance mutations before they appeared in clinical settings, giving researchers a head start in developing countermeasures. In agriculture, evolutionary predictions are helping farmers and scientists prepare for climate change. These models can forecast how crops will respond to rising temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, and new pest pressures. This information guides breeding programs to develop climate-resilient varieties. For instance, predictive models have identified genetic pathways that could enhance drought tolerance in key crop species. In conservation biology, predictive evolution helps identify which species are most vulnerable to extinction and which have the genetic potential to adapt to changing environmental conditions. For example, these models can predict how different coral species might adapt to ocean warming, helping to prioritize conservation efforts for reef ecosystems. In biotechnology, scientists are using evolutionary principles to develop new enzymes, proteins, and biological systems with specific desired properties. For example, directed evolution combined with predictive modeling has created enzymes that can break down plastic waste, potentially offering solutions to environmental pollution. Despite its promise, predictive evolution faces challenges, including the complexity of genetic interactions, environmental unpredictability, and the need for more comprehensive datasets. As computational power increases and genomic data becomes more abundant, predictive evolution will likely become more accurate and widely applied across scientific disciplines and industries. Despite the overwhelming scientific evidence supporting evolution, it remains a controversial topic for some. We'll address several common misconceptions about evolution, starting with how people often misunderstand what scientists mean by the word theory. In everyday language, theory often means a guess or speculation. But in science, a theory is a well-substantiated explanation supported by multiple lines of evidence. A scientific theory, like the theory of evolution, is extensively tested, supported by empirical evidence, and explains a wide range of observations. Another common misconception is that evolution supposedly violates the second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics states that entropy, or disorder, increases in an isolated system over time. Critics claim evolution can't create order from disorder, but they overlook that the Earth is not an isolated system. It receives a constant input of energy from the sun, which allows local decreases in entropy, including the development of complex life. Another common misconception is that evolution claims humans descended directly from modern chimpanzees or apes. Evolution does not claim that humans descended from modern apes or chimpanzees. Rather, both humans and modern apes share a common ancestor that lived millions of years ago. This is like saying you descended from your cousin. In reality, you and your cousin share common grandparents. Similarly, humans and chimps share common ancestors, but evolved along separate paths. Despite these misconceptions, it's important to understand that there is overwhelming scientific consensus supporting evolution. Public opinion on evolution varies widely, but among scientists, particularly biologists, there is near universal acceptance of evolution as the foundation of modern biology. Surveys consistently show that approximately 98% of scientists accept evolution as the dominant scientific theory explaining biological diversity. The disagreement mainly exists outside scientific circles. Let's look at some of the evidence that has convinced the scientific community. The theory of evolution is supported by multiple lines of evidence, including the fossil record, comparative anatomy, molecular biology, and observable instances of natural selection. Scientists study embryonic development, vestigial structures, and DNA similarities between species. These provide compelling evidence of common ancestry and evolutionary relationships. Understanding why these misconceptions persist highlights the importance of science education. Quality science education teaches critical thinking and how to evaluate evidence. It helps students distinguish between scientific explanations and non-scientific claims. Understanding the scientific method helps people recognize the rigor behind scientific theories. Science education addresses misconceptions with facts rather than opinions or beliefs. Evolution doesn't need to conflict with personal beliefs about purpose or meaning in life. Many people find ways to reconcile their religious or philosophical views with scientific understanding. Scientific theories like evolution explain how natural phenomena work, not why they exist or their purpose. Science and personal meaning can coexist, addressing different aspects of human experience. By addressing these misconceptions directly and promoting scientific literacy, we can foster a better understanding of evolution and its place in modern science.